welcome to Legally Speaking with Rest the Case, where we delve into the intricate world of real estate and property law in India. I'm your host, Rachna, and today we have a distinguished guest with us, Advocate Gaurav Ghosh, founder of DLC Law Chambers. And Advocate Gaurav Ghosh is a seasoned lawyer with expertise across multiple legal domains, offering strategic litigation and advisory services across Delhi, Calcutta, Chennai, and Lucknow. In this episode, we'll explore this dynamic field, examine the prevalence and root causes of property disputes in India, and discuss the legal structures governing these issues. We'll also delve into recent legislative amendments, inheritance related conflicts, land title challenges, and the impact of technological advancements like digitization and blockchain on property rights. Additionally, we'll address pressing concerns such as corruption in land administration and provide practical advice for first time property buyers to safeguard their investments. Whether you're a property owner, prospective buyer, legal professional, or simply interested in understanding the nuances of property law, this conversation promises to offer valuable perspectives and actionable insights. So let's get started. First of all, welcome to today's podcast, Advocate Ghosh.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I would like to begin today's podcast by asking you what inspired you to pursue a career in real estate and property law.
Well, I wasn't really pursuing a career in real estate and property law, but when I started practice, I used to work for an AOR at the Supreme Court, and he was on the panel of oil marketing companies like Bharat Petroleum and Hindustan Petroleum. So even in that kind of practice, I saw that property law played a big role in terms of lease and rental, transfer of land, other things. And thereafter, I got involved in some big matters involving property. They began as company matters, but ended up being property matters, as in things flowed from a will, and the company owned very high value properties. These then. After that, I had worked with in a in a matter concerning estates of an erstwhile royal family. So that was also mostly to do with property. And thereafter, in our independent practice, we have seen that property disputes are one of the more common kinds of litigation that is prevalent in the country. And yeah, if you are in litigation and if you are in disputes, then you have to deal with property.
Right, that's very interesting. So, as you said that property disputes are quite prevalent in our country. What are the key reasons behind them being so prevalent? Are there any specific reasons?
Well, to my mind, it's because people have there are two kinds of disputes: disputes regarding inheritance and disputes regarding buying and selling property. The disputes regarding inheritance is because people don't have a preconceived notion of how they are going to inherit, or if they are going to inherit, how they're going to share it with their co-inheritors. And the second part is between buyers and sellers. That happens because uh, either the buyer is not careful enough or because the seller is unscrupulous.
Right. And in terms of legal frameworks and acts that regulate property disputes, what are these main frameworks, and what are there any recent amendments or any changes that have been made to these laws?
The main act concerning property is, of course, the Transfer of Property Act. And other than that, there are several minor acts. There are several tenancy acts which vary from state to state. Um, as far as amendments are concerned, there was the 2005 amendment which made it legal for Hindu women to inherit equally. And other than that, there was a Model Tenancy Act which was supposed to come out, but I don't think it has been notified yet.
And we also just mentioned that inherited related property disputes are quite common, and they're always a major concern in India since we have such a big joint family system also.
Right.
What advice or what guidance would you offer to families who are in this scenario, and how to prevent these conflicts? What would you like to say to them?
Usually, having a common meeting and leaving a will uh, is enough to prevent a dispute, because if you have to file a suit, then you have to pay court fees, and any family member would try to avoid that, try to reduce their costs in inheriting the property. Usually, calling a family meeting and writing a will and giving everyone a registered copy of the will, that should suffice. But in the event that it does not, then my advice to people who are inheriting is to not sleep on their rights and to approach the courts immediately and have the property partitioned if it is intestate, and if there is a will, to get the will probated straight away.
Right, right. So basically, just be prepared beforehand, and I think knowing what
Yes,
laws and what are their rights is also
yes,
important.
yes, yes. Also, if you have consensus within the family, then inheritance does
Yeah,
not become a problem.
correct. And even after this, then land title issues are also a major cause of property disputes. So what?
Land title.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Please complete your question.
No, so I was just asking what measures can individual take to verify and protect their ownership on such, disputes?
So land title issues usually don't come up in urban areas, because in urban areas it's more or less it's easier to find out from the registry about title deeds, or to do a title search. Suppose if you're buying an apartment, there are not just lawyers chambers, there are specific agents who offer these services. They will do a title search for you for a small fee. So it is somewhat, if you're aware of what to do, it is somewhat easier in the urban scenario. In the rural scenario, land title, you have to do a thorough search, and often you have to go yourself and verify the papers. So it becomes tedious. But anyway, it has to be done, and it has to be done by someone who knows how to go through the papers in detail.
Right, right. So again, here probably hiring someone who knows how to do this well would be helpful.
Yes,
Yeah.
hiring someone, and you have to make sure that that person is a professional, as in
Right.
they will do the job that is assigned to them and will not mislead you or try to
Right.
get you to make some deal or something like that.
Mm. And how effective is, say, mediation and arbitration in resolving property related disputes? Uh,
In a core property dispute, I have not seen an arbitration matter.
okay.
Arbitration matters can come up in the examples that I was giving. If it's a company dispute and property is involved, then there might be arbitration involved. Otherwise, I have not never seen a core property dispute being taken to arbitration, because you need an agreement for arbitration to happen, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that kind of a scenario is rare. And even between builders and buyers, if they feel aggrieved, then they can always approach the courts, even if there is an arbitration agreement.
Okay.
They can approach the consumer forum and all of that.
Right.
And mediation, as far as it comes to mediation can be very effective, provided that both parties agree to mediate, and none of them are actually playing fraud or taking gross advantage of the other party. Because
Mm.
for mediation, you need common ground, right? You have to
Right.
come to common ground. And mediation is also enforceable. An order passed in mediation is enforceable by the court. So mediation can be very effective.
Mm. Do you think it's a way to kind of prevent so many disputes coming to the court if mediation is taken up as a means to resolve some of these disputes?
Yes, probably.
Hmm. Right. And let's also then talk about technology and coming into real estate law. So, do you think that digitization of land records and e-governance has reduced property disputes, or do you think this has brought in new legal challenges?
I think digitization remains incomplete by and large. If digitization can be completed, and it can be done in a more, it can be what is the exact word? It can be hosted on online platforms in a more efficient manner. Then that will reduce a lot of disputes, and just by making it easier for you to do a search, it
Mm.
will reduce disputes, and it will also help keep the courts clearer.
Mm.
And sorry, I missed your question. What
So
else did you ask about digitization?
I was just asking, so digitization of land records and e-governance. Um,
E-governance, yeah. Digitization of land records is helpful, but
yeah.
the problem remains that it has not been completed.
Hmm.
And e-governance also is helpful, but we have, as in, sometimes things work and sometimes things don't.
Right.
So you probably end up in a government office if there is actually something very wrong.
Hmm. So with digitization, I believe the idea is correct, but still execution.
Yeah. The implementation is not very effective.
Okay, okay. But you do think if this is done properly, then there might be a reduction in property.
It will make it easier for the common man to have a better idea of what is going on.
Right, right. And so even in terms of say blockchain technology, do you think this will contribute to property rights and securing
Certain
rights in
certain states are experimenting with blockchain,
yeah,
but I don't really see how it's going to be very helpful in a situation where even digitization is not very effective. It hasn't been implemented properly.
correct, correct. So I feel like that's very far away for us right now to even consider then.
Yeah.
Hmm. And then, I mean, talking about challenges in terms of property disputes, do you think that, local administration or the localized corruption that happens in, offices, in local offices, is that causing or having an impact on property disputes according to you?
It definitely has an impact, but not so much as to cause a significant increase in disputes by itself.
Mm.
What actually is more problematic is which is problematic for all kinds of disputes is the ineffective functioning of the judiciary. We need more judges and we need more courts. I'm not for tribunalization, but maybe we need special courts for property disputes if it is only to appoint more judges,
Right.
because the more judges we have, the more expeditiously grievances addressed, the less time is wasted in adjudicating to these kind
And
of
I
disputes.
feel like property disputes are one of the disputes that take the longest time probably to get
Yes,
solved.
because it's all about court dates and
Yeah,
going through papers and all of that. It should not take that long, but unfortunately it does.
it does. Yeah, yeah. And is there also a big problem of property buyers, facing fraudulent real estate transactions? Is that something that's a big problem in the real estate world?
Yes, that problem is there, and that problem is somehow exacerbated by buyers not being able to get their grievances addressed properly. Like they came out with the RERA Act and the RERA
Yeah.
courts and everything, but these courts have remained largely ineffective.
Hmm.
RERA courts pass orders which they don't enforce,
Hmm.
and it goes to an ex-bureaucrat who has never been in the judiciary, who has probably never been a lawyer. So it doesn't really help for the consumer.
Right.
On the other hand, consumer courts are more effective in dealing with builder-buyer disputes.
Okay. Okay. So, would your advice be to such property owners to approach consumer courts to resolve issues if they have faced in terms of
In my experience, consumer courts are better at handling these grievances than RERA courts. Because if the RERA court doesn't implement its own order, then it's really ineffective to have your time wasted going to
yeah.
RERA, and ultimately you end up in a writ court
Hmm.
getting an order passed to the RERA court. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think consumer court is a better approach.
Okay, okay. And so then what would your top legal advice be for first-time property buyers, to safeguard themselves from any potential disputes in the future?
Property buyers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do a thorough title search. You see that the chain of possession and the title chain is correct. You have your documentation absolutely sorted,
Hmm.
and it is better always to go through a bank if you're buying from a builder,
Okay.
because the bank does its own due diligence.
Right.
Yeah. Apart from that, there's just general advice about doing background checks and seeing past projects and delivery.
Yeah.
So that's you have to be generally aware if you're buying property.
Correct. And are there any red flags in property transactions which, buyers should look out for to know that something is not okay or something might be wrong?
The red flags usually come up. There are different red flags for different cases.
Yeah.
One red flag is obviously if the seller seems to be in a hurry. If
Hmm.
you're being offered something and if the deal sounds too good to be true, it is probably too good to be true.
Yeah.
So don't do things in a hurry and go through proper channels
Yeah.
and know who you're dealing with and have all the documents in front of you before you enter into any agreement.
What about people who are leasing or renting a property? Would it be similar? Would the signs be similar to if suppose someone's too?
Yes, there are a lot of innovative frauds in lease and rent
Hmm.
nowadays. Frauds both from the landlord side and both from the
Yeah.
tenant side. So you have to be very careful. You can't be in a hurry, and you have to do your own due diligence
Yeah. Okay.
and complete the paperwork before you do anything.
Hmm. And do you see any upcoming reforms or legal changes on the horizon that could impact or affect property law in India? Or do you see it just going as it is right now?
Some tax reform, if it happens, would be helpful.
Hmm.
Some reform on the capital gains tax would be helpful.
Hmm.
Then, if the Model Tenancy Act is affected, it would be really helpful for
Hmm.
both landlords and tenants.
Hmm.
Apart from that, I don't see any major changes happening.
Right. And
Of
according,
course, of course, if there is more appointment of judges and the courts are made to function in a better way, that would be the best thing that can happen.
yeah. According to you, what is something that needs to be changed, or what is something that needs to change in the current legal framework so that there would be lesser disputes? One you mentioned already of having more judges, appointing more judges. What other than that do you think?
It would have been very good had the system that was brought about by the RERA Act, had it been effective and implemented properly. It would have been very good for the general consumer, buyer, seller, whoever you talk about.
Hmm.
But since that this experiment has more or less failed, I
Hmm.
don't see how these issues can be addressed without addressing the core issues.
Right, right. Okay. I think all of my questions from my end, which I had for you today, we've come to end of that. But is there anything from your end which you'd like to discuss more or you'd like to tell our listeners?
I have some general advice, which is if you are going into property, whether it is for investment or for your personal use, or if you are a seller or a landlord, uh, my advice generally to everyone dealing with property in any way is to have proper documentation, gather all your documentation about your own property, and if you're buying, then about the seller. Have clear antecedents of who is buying, who is selling, what the title deeds are. Uh, if there are disputes, then try to go for mediation. It might save you time and money. And most importantly, if there is a dispute, then do not sleep on your rights. There are several remedies you can take. You can file a civil suit. You can file a suit for injunction, possession, declaration. In case of fraud, you can approach the criminal courts. And of course, you can approach consumer courts for builder buyer disputes. But the important thing is not to sleep on your rights. Because if you sleep on your rights, then property disputes usually take much longer and they become more complicated.
Yeah,
And you start losing any advantage that you might have to begin with.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's,
Okay. I think with that, we've come to the end of today's podcast. Thank you so much, Advocate Ghosh, for such an insightful discussion and for answering all our questions. And I think you really answered all the questions in a very informative manner. And I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot. I have learned a lot. And so we've discussed from inheritance conflicts to unclear land titles to fraudulent real estate transactions. We've explored what the disputes can be, what steps to take for individuals, and how they can safeguard their rights. And I think it's clear from today's discussion that staying informed, conducting diligence, and seeking legal guidance when needed, I think, is the way to navigate these issues better and avoid some of the disputes.
Yes, proper planning is very important.
Yeah.
Not just in case of inheritance or buying and selling, but also in case of trusts and estates.
Yeah.
And other instruments. Proper planning is essential.
Proper planning, proper due diligence from the beginning,
Yes.
so that first you're avoiding these disputes, and even if they come up, you know
Yeah.
what your rights are.
Exactly.
We hope this episode provided valuable insights and advice for anyone involved in real estate transaction. Stay tuned for more in-depth discussions on legal matters that affect you. Thank you so much again to Advocate
Thank you.
Ghosh
Thanks a
and
lot.
our listeners. Thank you.